Hi all, today we'll discuss Spring interview question. So the first question is what is IOC in version of control container. So this is the first question mostly asked by all the interviewer. It's a common interview question. So what is IOC and in version of control container. So this is the questions, and as per the applicable answers also we have written here. And the next question is benefit of IOC. Suppose if you have used a Spring or a Spring Boot, so they will ask what is IOC and what is the benefit of IOC. So these all are the benefits when we used IOC. Then this is the benefit of IOC. And then the next questions will be like what is dependency injections, what are the type of dependency injections, how we used in this dependency injections. So mostly we have a this is the dependency injection, and we have a multiple types in this dependency injections, by name and by type. So that way we can use. And then we have there are different type of uh, dependency injections will be there. So either we have a setter injections or constructor injections. So they will ask what is setter injection and what is the constructor injection. So when to use setter injections and when to use constructor injections. So this is the way. And then we have a setter and constructor, and when after that we will ask they will ask like a difference between bean factory and application context. So when to use bean factory and when to use application context. So bean factory, the appropriate answers we have written here. This is the scenario where you used bean factory, and this is the scenario where we can use the application context. Then other questions asked by the interviewer: what is the bean auto wire and types of auto wire mode? So how we will use the bean auto wire in a Spring, and what are the types of that? So this is the way we can use the bean auto wire, and there are multiple types is there, by name and by type, which I have already told. So mode of auto wire, by name and by type we can auto wire this. Another is by constructor. Third one is by constructor we can do, and then other is auto wire by auto detect. So this way we can do as in a Spring. Then the next question is asked what is the bean scope and type of bean scope. So differentiate between a singleton and prototype bean scope. So there are multiple bean scopes are there. One is a singleton, other is a prototype. So they are asking for singleton and prototype difference. So this is the singleton and this is the prototype. Apart from this, we have next request is also bean type, and then session and global sessions and all. The next questions will be asked like what is bean lifecycle. So how we will use bean lifecycle in a Spring. So mostly bean lifecycle will work on three things. One is init, another is service, another is destroy. So based on these three method, bean lifecycle will work. So first is initialize, then the service method will be invoked, and after that the service operations will perform, then destroy method will be invoked. And then the next question will ask what is a Spring AOP. So AOP is used for mostly in a Spring, that is aspect oriented programming. So we have multiple type of AOP is used, mostly for this logging mechanism and some securities and all. So we have we can apply the AOP in the logging, auditing, security, transaction and caching, so and performance monitoring. So principle of AOP. So AOP is a aspect oriented programming. So this aspect, advice, join point and point cut and weaving and target proxies will be there. So they will ask what type of AOP is there and when to use the particular AOP. So suppose first is aspect. So where we used aspect in our project, what is the advice, when to use advice, and what is the point cut, why we used point cut, what is join point, and then what is the target, what is the weaving, and what is the proxy. So these type of questions will be asked through the Spring AOP. And the next question is Spring MVC. So what is a Spring MVC, when to use, what do you mean by Spring MVC? So a Spring MVC is this way, and the mostly will have a model, view and controller will be there in the Spring MVC. So what is model, what is view, and what is a controller? So this type of way we can create a Spring MVC based on the model, view, controller. Then the next question will ask what is a Spring MVC flow, how it worked. So a Spring MVC flow, if you are using Spring, then how a Spring MVC flow will work, how you are writing the model view controllers and all. The next question is what is controller, how many type of controller, which controller you are used in your project, and how you created a controller class in Spring MVC. So what is controller and type of controller, and how you are creating in your project. So this is the controller, these all are the type: simple form controller, abstract form controller, abstract command controller. So to create in our project, how we are creating by the annotation. So we need to annotate with the @controller and @request mapping in the class level, so that controller will be created. So this is the examples where we create a controller. So we have a person controller, that person we have a controller, there we have a @controller annotated, and the request mapping is a phase. Then we auto wire some services, as this I person services I created, and this instance is person service reference variable. And then we auto wire this service, and after that we have a request mapping. So that request mapping /page/login, once this will be called, then the method will be called as a hello method, and in that we have a parameters. So you are a user ID required as false, and then other parameter locations. So based on that, it will call this model attribute, and then they will check this details of person name based on user ID and location, and result will be fetched. So like that we will create a controller, which we have mentioned the type also. And then the next question, what is servlet dispatchers, when to use servlet dispatchers, and why we are using, have you used the servlet dispatcher. So where we use servlet dispatcher, if you'll open the Spring MVC project, in that we have a web.xml file. If you'll open that XML, there we have a web Spring servlet dispatchers will be there, and this way we can use, and what is the difference and all. So the next question is what is handler mapping, where and which handler mapping you used in your project. So we have a handler mapping. There are multiple type of handler mapping is there: simple URL handler mapping, bean name URL handler mapping, and handler interceptor. So we can use this. And others is what is view resolver, which project we used you used in view resolver. And the view resolvers, mostly there are multiple type of view resolver. This is the questions answers for the view resolvers. And we are a multiple type of view resolver: XML view resolver, URL based view resolver, and resource bundle view resolver. And the next question is what is model and view. So controller we already discussed, now asking for model and view. So model and view, how we will, and how handle this view in Spring MVC using XML. So suppose if you handle the view using Spring MVC in XML, then that declaration, this is the declarations we can use this. We have a prefix and such suffix we need to add, and bean class name, so that will be fine. And what is the minimum wave XML configurations to run the Spring MVC. So to run this Spring MVC, we need a servlet dispatchers, context config locations, context loader listeners in web.xml. This is the sample examples where we have web.xml. There we used servlet dispatchers, and then web context config locations and context loader listener. And the next question is what annotations you are using in your project. Can you can us list them, like what all are the annotations you are using. So first we use mostly AutoWire, @AutoWire, then other is @qualifier, and @required, and then stereotype annotations, component, controller, and then service, repository, and all. So this component, @component, @service, @repository, and then @controller. So these all are the stereotype, @request mapping, and all. So these all are the notations mostly we used in the common basic examples while we are writing or we are working off any project or requirement. The next question will ask for this Spring securities. So what is a Spring security, how a Spring security work, and how you used in your project. So mostly we used a Spring security for this authentication authorizations by using web client or maybe JWT token. Then the next questions they ask how to implement the Spring security. So if you want to implement the Spring security, so this is the way where we have authentication authorizations, username, password.
Then add the pom.xml. In that you need to add the security dependency. So security, we have a multiple type as a security core, security web, and security config. And then add this config security context XML, and then username, password, and then security things. And we have also LDAP, lightweight directory access protocol, importance dependency. So what all are the types there? And the next question is, what is delegating filter proxy? When to use proxy, delegating filter proxy? So this is the way where we can use the filter proxies. So delegating filter. So these all are the most interview questions related for a Spring MVCs. So if you want, you can refer, and then also I have attached the mention the proper answers inside that.